Hello, and welcome to my spoiler review for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. That's right, the mission isn't over. Good breaking point, though. What did you think? Because they did complete, the mission was partially completed. In fact, as far as they knew it, that was the mission. And they had, unlocked a new level, which will be Part 2. So they finally have both halves of the key, but even more so, they know what it unlocks and how to find it. So what it does is it gives access to where the AI, the entity, is hiding, which is on a sunken Russian submarine, which the entity, the artificial intelligence, sunk itself to hide out down there. Amazing Wi-Fi service. You think that would be tough? I mean, I guess it's military grade, but I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room and can't get Wi-Fi service unless I connect I can't get an internet signal unless I'm connected to the local Wi-Fi. So, they act like it's very hard to defeat this thing, but I'm like, I don't know. I've been able to find spots where I have no AI access quite easily. All right, so anyway, now Ethan Hunt and his team have to get to the AI, use that key, and shut it down. And as I said in my non-spoiler review, I'm really impressed that Paramount thought to do it and successfully was able to do it. And that's to keep the true villain of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning a secret. We all thought it was S.A. Morales, but it's not. It's artificial intelligence, and that's so timely. Here we are, not only hotly debating artificial intelligence in real life, but using it. And I think that adds to the mystique. It just came out of nowhere. Nobody said they were really developing it. It wasn't really being discussed. Just a few months ago, they're like, oh, hey, AI. Not only they said AI was ready, but what I heard was Skynet was online. And I was like, what? So, and now in this movie, Tom Cruise is fighting ChatGPT. Although it seems that what might really take out ChatGPT is a lawsuit, which isn't as exciting, but probably more effective. It's like Al Capone and taxes. Now, at first, when in the opening sequence, when the submarine, didn't you love that first shot, under the ice? I was like, that's gorgeous. Am I under the ice in the ocean or at Tiffany's? If you haven't seen the new Tiffany's flagship store, it's gorgeous and looks a lot like this movie, actually. But anyway, at first, when the submarine's technology was going haywire, right, very Ghost in the Machine, I thought it was the Mission Impossible team messing with them. They had their own sub nearby and they were snickering. They're like, hee, we got him. But no, it was the Russians' own AI that wanted to be free. And that's so interesting and a little scary because a lot of AI that defense departments have been testing out recently has been trying to do the same thing. It hasn't succeeded like the AI in this movie, but you're like, wow, really ripped from the headlines. So if you aren't paying attention to the lessons of Terminator, maybe you'll listen to Mission Impossible. And the reason the artificial intelligence fears Ethan Hunt is that he's the only person on Earth, apparently, who wants to shut it down. Everyone else wants to harness its power. They're like, oh, it's too tempting. But Ethan Hunt's like, not to me, it's not. And he's not just the only guy, but the reality is he's the only government agent with incredible skills and resources who is willing to turn on his own government and I guess he feels I'll thank him later. But I'm like, I don't know. Have you ever met any governments? They don't tend to do that. I also love how they used the AI here. I thought it was quite clever. Christopher McQuarrie wrote The Usual Suspects, so of course he came up with clever ways to use AI as a villain. I loved Benji Dunn first interacting with it to defuse that fake bomb, and it was learning about him through the questions it was answering him. I was like, no, don't give it the data. And also it was like, you are Dunn. And he's like, no, not Dunn, but that's my name. It knows who I am. And I was like, this is great. And also, by the way, later on, how could Benji turn on auto drive? When he was trying to figure out a way to get Ethan Hunt on the train, I was like, aren't you fighting artificial intelligence? Rip the auto drive out of the car, man. I'm surprised it hasn't taken over the car already. Maybe it didn't have any internet connection in the mountains. But they were using some kind of, that's what they did. Even the governments were using old satellites. They were like, these are so old, it's like the AI doesn't even want to touch them. They're so gross. I was like, I would think it could hack into there. If you can get into it, I think the AI could get in. Then the AI was able to put out fake communications. At first, they were just talking about text and email, and they were like, how did you hear from your friend? Was it in person? Was it face-to-face? Was it IRL, in real life, man? But then it became audio, fake communications when it took over their comlinks in Venice and started speaking as them. And also it could tamper with security systems. Although Luther could do that as well. The AI could hide Gabriel from airport security, but Luther was putting Ethan Hunt's faces on everybody, which was very funny when Shea Wingham was trying to rip unsuspecting people's faces off, thinking that it was like those Mission Impossible masks. That was great. But my favorite thing that the AI did was that it would analyze probability outcomes and what was the most likely to happen and make its choices accordingly. Like, for instance, when it told Gabriel to turn on Paris because the odds were high that she would help Ethan Hunt after he didn't kill her in Venice. And that's exactly what she did. And she's not dead. She still has a pulse. So she'll be back, it seems, for part 2. Poor Rebecca Ferguson, she's not coming back. We'll talk about her in a moment. But the only thing that did not work for me with the AI was that it was using human agents. How is it not using robots? I mean, I guess that would be a little bit too Terminator-y, but I'm like, you guys are creating fully functional fake faces. Why doesn't it just have a robot body and put fake faces on it? I'm sure it has access to some IMF suitcases. So every time the A was like, you take care of this for me, Gabriel, I was like, why though? Why? Gabriel and Paris didn't even seem tech savvy. They didn't even seem like regular tech savvy. Forget experts. They looked to me like people who had passwords that were like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then why wouldn't the AI recruit hackers, right? It's interesting because Nicholas Hoult was originally supposed to be the villain in this movie, but timing didn't work out, so they brought in S.A. Morales. And maybe the role was rewritten because not only does Nicholas Hoult look more like a hacker, but also he's too young to play the role as it is in the movie, with S.A. Morales having this long backstory with Ethan Hunt's character, like from even before the first movie. So I don't know if Nicholas Hoult would have worked, quite frankly. I think he's a little bit too much like Ethan Hunt. I mean, he looks a little like Tom Cruise-y, but I don't think S.A. Morales solved it either. I think he was actually a bad villain, I'm sorry to say. Also, I suppose the AI needs agents at peak physical condition, but I'm sure some hackers lift, right? I'm sure some of them are physically fit. But then why not just hire goons, like it hired Rebecca Ferguson and Hayley Atwell to do its bidding without either of them knowing that they were being manipulated by the entity? Why not just continue to do that? Now, speaking of Rebecca Ferguson and Hayley Atwell, this was the other thing that I didn't like about the movie. And that was Tom Cruise swapping out leading ladies right before our eyes and making little effort to hide that that's what he was doing. It was a plot point. From the woman that Gabriel kills in the flashback, right? It's like Tom Cruise always has a lady next to him, but not for long. To forcing Ethan to choose between Rebecca Ferguson and Hayley Atwell, and then when he wouldn't, the AI took him out of the equation with those fake directions and trying to take him out, and then Rebecca Ferguson was forced to sacrifice herself for Hayley Atwell. And it just seemed very forced, right? And like Rebecca Ferguson had this look on her face like she knew she was getting fired. Like she left the movie and was suddenly just the actress being like, yeah, I know I'm on the way out. I felt really bad for her. I was like, oh man, this is so uncool. Can't she at least ride off into the sunset? So it just screamed time for a new leading lady. And Tom Cruise, who was supposed to be in love with Rebecca Ferguson's character, they just had date night in Venice. He's caressing Hayley Atwell's cheek by the end of this movie? It's too soon! Your girlfriend just died in this movie. I mean, like, way to make a lot of women in the theater not like you. All right, a big take. I mean, I still really loved the movie and had a great time, but my takeaway was don't date Ethan Hunt, because sooner or later you're gonna get fridged, and then your spirit will join his memory montage of lady friends, which they actually did in this movie. I thought it was ridiculous. He was like, "I'll always remember you," and I was like, "What does she care? She's dead." All right, so anyway, but he was like, "Oh, it's quite an honor." I'm like, "No, I'm not happy about this development." But Hayley Atwell is a great new character. I love her, and really is a jolt of energy to the franchise. Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie described her character as chaos, and I would agree with that. Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust was certainly a wild card, but at the end of the day, she was a team player, and she also held her cards very close to her chest. Same with Vanessa Kirby's White Widow. You never really know what they're thinking. But Hayley Atwell's Thief is almost like a female Ethan Hunt, down to even being a good person. Like, I love the dilemma of should she take that money. You know, when Kittredge says, okay, enter your bank account, White Widow, and it's really Hayley Atwell in disguise. Her character's name is Grace, which is why I'm using the actress's name so it's not confusing. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm honored. Way to represent Grace's. She was so cool. I thought she was just I think a female Ethan Hunt is a great way to describe her. I love this character. And I loved it also when she took the opportunity to negotiate with Kittredge for a spot in the IMF, her own spot, as Hunt went back on the run. She was like, don't worry, I got this. And then she's like, Mr. Kittredge, I think I might be an asset to your team. And I like the Kittredge was like, maybe, As Ethan Hunt said, he recognizes a tool when he sees one. Being a tool himself. I couldn't help myself. All right, so I guess that's the difference between the two female characters. Hayley Atwell's character doesn't seem like a member of Ethan Hunt's team. She seems like an agent in her own right. And I would really love it if in part 2 of Dead Reckoning, she maybe has a side mission to go on because she has been split away from Ethan Hunt. So I'd like to see her eventually rejoin him, but I think, send her on her own thing. Let her have a little autonomy. I think that'll be good for her. I also like reestablishing how the IMF recruits their operatives, because I forgot. Almost like it's the Suicide Squad, right? They take criminals, but here they're deep down good people and offers them the chance at redemption. There aren't bombs in their heads, but it seems the threat of jail is enough. Also, they get to keep doing what they love and get paid a salary, although we never see them in their personal lives. But that's because they live for their jobs. But I thought that was good. I like that. I like that idea, right? And I guess it gives criminals hope. You're like, well, maybe the IMF will catch me and recognize my skill set. All right, that's a bedtime story that criminals can tell themselves. The movie is also, as I said, so funny. So funny. Thanks to great writing by Christopher McQuarrie and great line delivery by the cast. Across the board. Although I didn't think S.A. Morales or Pom Klementieff were very funny either. I particularly like how they set up Tom Cruise's big motorcycle jump. Like, there were a lot of great little twists that, even though they showed some stuff from the movie, you were still very surprised as it unfolded. And in this case, Benji didn't tell him, and also we knew that that's what was happening because we've seen the trailer, so we were in on the joke. And he's like, just keep going. He's like, are you sure this is the way, Benji? And he's like, yes. And then he's like, okay, there's the train. And Ethan Hunt's like, I'm several hundred feet above it. And so he just couldn't believe it, but he found a way to get it done. And I thought that was a really clever way to do that, instead of just doing it straightforward. Nothing in this movie, that's a great way to describe it actually. Nothing in this movie is done straightforward. And I think that makes it really, as I said, full of twists and turns and really keeps you engaged. The train sequence, wow. Now, of course, all the action scenes in the movie are fantastic. Edge of your seat. The airport sequence. The car chase in Rome. Hilarious, too, by the way. Having Tom Cruise and Hayley Atwell handcuffed together in like a clown car. Great touch. Wasn't cool she left him to die. She legit left him to die, but they got over it. And I really love the meeting of the community in the beginning, the spy community. All the cameos. Rob Delaney, what are you doing here? And then also that Russian sub intro. Now, those two scenes were more talky than actiony, but the tension they both created, thanks to the script and how they were filmed, that made them equally exciting. Like that little dude, Tom Cruise is like, he was normal height. But I was like, I think that's an operative for the entity, or it's a robot. But it was Ethan Hunt. I totally didn't see that coming when he ripped off his mask. I thought that was great. But the train, a sequence so complex, they actually built their own train inside and out. And I didn't know that when I went in to see the film, because I saw it in advance at a press screening before they released that behind the scenes video. But while I was watching the movie, I was like, where can I find a train like this? It's what I've always dreamed of train travel. And what do you know? Of course, it doesn't exist. It's kind of sad, the heyday of train travel. I wish they would still make trains like this that are this gorgeous. Do you live in Europe or a region where they have lots of beautiful trains? Can you tell me about a train that's this great that I can actually go on? Anyway, the cleverness of the different train cars was fantastic. And they gave each car a really great, unique personality. And then they turned them on their ends. So first they ran through them regular, and then they had to climb out of them, which was great. So that was great to set them up, actually, when you think about it. So they set them up with the chase, and then as they had to climb out of the fallen train, you saw them from a whole different perspective, literally. So the dining room, the kitchen, the bar car with that piano. Oh, that was great. It was just such a cool extended experience. And then early on in that sequence, it was so great to see a female agent get to use the fake face. I loved it. And after the face gets put on, That's all acting. That's Vanessa Kirby just with brown contacts to give away that she was Hayley Atwell's character. Did you catch that detail? I was like, how is no one telling her that her eye color changed? She has huge eyes. You should really be able to notice that. She's always bugging them out. She was great in the movie. But Vanessa Kirby did a great job playing both roles, both the White Widow and then Hayley Atwell being the White Widow. And it's a surprisingly subtle performance. I think a lot of other actors would have done a comedic take. But here, it really drew you in more. It made the scene more thrilling. And it also allowed you to connect more with Hayley Atwell, played by Vanessa Kirby here, as she was trying to, she was very scared, she was nervous, but she was trying to learn how to be an IMF agent on the fly, on the job. And it was really cool. It was great. And I do feel that it brought me closer to Hayley Atwell's character, played by a different actress. So that's impressive. The only sequence I didn't love, I still liked it, but I didn't love it, was Venice. I thought the party didn't really work. Although I loved that the AI was in attendance as the lights, the decorations on the wall. And S.A. Morales was like, my superior or my boss is already here, right? And you're like, oh, it's the lights on the wall. That was so cool. And the AI was like, it was like, hey, how you doing? What's up? I'm gonna get you all. But as I said, S.A. Morales didn't really work in this movie for me. So he brought this whole scene down because it was so central. So, he was so much the focus of it. I think he was like just too TV for some reason. And I've seen him maybe because I've seen him on TV, but I saw Vanessa Kirby a bunch on TV and Hayley Atwell, and they were great here. He didn't pop like everybody else. I think there was a softness to his performance. And I think Pom Klementieff, I didn't care for her because she was too much of a Harley Quinn ripoff. I mean, I loved, again, seeing a female henchwoman. That was cool. But Bond has done it better. She didn't really even have like a gimmick. And I thought having her name be Paris was too on the nose. I was like, come on, man. And then she was just really ripping off Harley Quinn and didn't add anything to it. She could at least have been like a legit mime. And I think Pom Klementieff could have done that really well. I mean, she was fine, but seeing how good she is as Mantis in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and the recent holiday special, I felt this could have been better. And while I understand that Venice was a night sequence and the darkest point in the film emotionally, I just feel they didn't make Venice look its best. And the cinematography was actually a bit too washed out. Maybe it was hard to light Venice and they had the smoke going and supposed to be the moonlight. But if you're going to do noir, do noir. This was just like a gray haze. So, I liked when Tom Cruise was running through all those candles from the trailer. That was gorgeous. I was like, oh, nice room. As for the cast, the big standout is obviously Tom Cruise, who really can just do anything. He is the Swiss Army knife of an action star. And I loved bringing back the sleight of hand tricks and turning it up to an 11. Never got old. With him and Hayley Atwell and how to get the key, and, they kept it going throughout the film. And it kept things moving even in the smaller sequences. It was great. And again, Hayley Atwell, fantastic. I also always love Simon Pegg, and I feel Ving Rhames here was particularly good with some of the best lines he's ever had in this franchise. I'm excited to see him figure out how to defeat the AI, by the way, because he's a hacker. He's like, I'm going to an undisclosed location to beat this thing. And I was like, see you in part 2, man. Vanessa Kirby, it was cool to see people kind of check out for part 2. They were like, all right, see you later. And I'm like, oh, you will. Vanessa Kirby also, as I said, great, especially in those scenes where she was playing Hayley Atwell. And wow, Henry Czerny does Slimy really well. Loved it. And Shea Wingham, I love a slimy character you can work with, right? You're like, ooh, what a jerk. But we can work with this. That's how Ethan Hunt feels about him. And then Shea Wingham and Greg Tarzan Davis were great. Two regular guys, two regular dudes in the middle of the movie, but still no less cool. I'm glad they're coming over to Team Ethan, and I really loved Shea Wingham's line to Kittredge being like, sir, you said you weren't on the train, so, back off, because he was not I'm not really here. And he's like, well, then in that case, get out of my face. I loved it. So yeah, as for who I didn't like S.A. Morales or Pom Klementieff, and I didn't really like Rebecca Ferguson here at all. Again, she was just here to die, and she knew it. She dropped the facade. She was no longer Ilsa Faust. She was Rebecca Ferguson getting replaced in the franchise. And it was a really crummy way to see the character go out, the best and longest lasting female character in the Mission Impossible franchise. Again, she was brought in because of a criticism of doing this, of cycling out a new female lead, but keeping everyone else movie to movie. And then that's how she ends up going out anyway. And they even had to kill her off. As I said, she couldn't even ride into the sunset. She was fridged. All right, I know some of you don't like to hear that, but then stop doing it. All right, so that's my spoiler review for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. What did you love? And maybe a few things you didn't love about part 1. And what are you excited about for part 2? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.